Good morning, everybody. So, today, talking a little bit about pain and surrendering to emotional pain and accepting emotional pain. So, in hindsight, some of the most difficult times in my life, especially during addiction, was when there were things outside of my control happening in my life that I found unpleasant and I resisted them rather than accepting them. And this caused a lot of pain and turmoil, and that's an understatement. That's putting it mildly. I had some very significant mental and emotional breakdowns because, in hindsight, I was unwilling to accept a situation that was beyond my control. In the same way, when we are experiencing pain, emotional pain, because of a situation that's outside of our control, for example, the death of a family member, or a falling out, an issue with a relationship that we have. A lot of times, as addicts, our instinct is to run from that pain and to go away from it however we can, whether it's through drugs or alcohol, or even in recovery through work. Or a lot of times we're told, if you're ever in pain, just go help somebody else, which is good advice, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, we got to be careful that we're not just getting into the habit of running from our pain. We got to get in the habit of being able to face that pain and be with it without getting into self-pity and wallowing in it. So it's an important distinction. We got to be careful with it. But in The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle this morning, he talks about this some, and I want to read this because I think this is really important stuff. He says, if you cannot accept what is outside, then accept what is inside. If you cannot accept the external condition, accept the internal condition. This means do not resist the pain. Allow it to be there. Surrender to the grief, despair, fear, loneliness, or whatever form of suffering takes place. Witness it without labeling it mentally. Embrace it. Then see how the miracle of surrender transmutes deep suffering into deep peace. This is your crucifixion. Let it become your resurrection and ascension. He goes on to say, when your pain is deep, all talk of surrender will probably seem futile and meaningless anyway. When your pain is deep, you will likely have a strong urge to escape from it rather than surrender to it. You don't want to feel what you feel. What could be more normal? But there is no escape, no way out. There are many pseudo-escapes. Work, drink, drugs, anger, projection, suppression, and so on, but they don't free you from the pain. Suffering does not diminish in intensity when you make it unconscious. When you deny emotional pain, everything you do or think, as well as your relationships, become contaminated with it. So, this is a distinction between running from the pain and facing it and dealing with it. And, as addicts, I know my instinct is to, when I feel emotional pain, find a way to push it away, to get away from it. And I experienced this recently where, because of an argument that I had with someone, I was feeling sad. And my instinct was push that pain away. And the way that I wanted to push it away was by blaming the other person. But it wasn't their fault. They had expressed their thoughts. I expressed mine. The thoughts were different and at odds with each other. And that's okay. That's what happens in relationships. And if it means that I'm at a crossroads in my relationship with that person, that's okay too. That happens too in relationships. I don't have to blame anyone for feeling that way and for feeling sadness that the relationship might not be what it was. I can feel that emotion and just observe it and let it be. And indeed, that's what he talks about in the last part of this. So I want to read this. He gives kind of a prescription for when you're feeling these negative emotions that you typically want to push away from. Here's what you do. So he says, when there is no way out, there is still a way through. So don't turn away from the pain. Face it. Feel it fully. Feel it. Don't think about it. Feel it. Express it if necessary, but don't create a script in your mind around it. Give all your attention to the feeling, not the person, event, or situation that seems to have caused it. So that's a big one. That's a big one. Because when I feel pain, I'm always thinking about who caused this or what caused this and how it needs to change and things like that. That's not what we need to do. Feel the pain. Don't let the mind use the pain to create a victim identity for yourself out of it. Well, that's what I used to do all the time and still find myself doing. So when I feel pain, I'm a victim, and let's create the story of how this whole thing happened and how I'm feeling like this. Let's create that story to tell myself, and that just leads down the road to self-pity. It's never good. Feeling sorry for yourself and telling others your story will keep you stuck in suffering. Since it is impossible to get away from the feeling, the only possibility of change is to move into it. Otherwise, nothing will shift. So give your complete attention to what you feel and refrain from mentally labeling it. As you go into the feeling, be intensely alert. At first, it may seem like a dark and terrifying place. And when the urge to turn away from it comes, observe that urge, but don't act on it. Keep putting your attention on the pain. Keep feeling the grief, the fear, the dread, the loneliness, the anxiety, whatever it is. Stay alert, stay present, present with your whole being, with every cell of your body. As you do so, you are bringing a light into the darkness. This is the flame of your consciousness. Now that is good stuff. And I fully believe that that is one of the ways, one of the many ways in which we need to handle our emotional pain when it comes up. That's something that I, as an addict, and I know many other addicts, struggle with, is how do I handle this emotional pain that I'm so used to running from and pushing out of my life. And one way is to just feel it. And that takes practice for us. The other week when I did this myself, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a really weird feeling to let myself just be with an emotion without trying to blame somebody for it. And it was a weird feeling. But I was able to move through that pain in a lot more productive way than I was if I tried to blame other people for it and create a story around it that turned me into the victim, rather than just someone experiencing something. So I hope this way of thinking about it makes sense. I'd be very interested to hear any thoughts about it. Otherwise, I'll see you back here tomorrow morning